Dude, I don't know about you, but I am so fucking ready for this fucking movie. It is not even funny. I guess. You guess? What do you mean you guess? You're not excited for this fucking thing? Figured you'd have at least a little bit of enthusiasm. I mean, people have been losing their fucking shits over this thing. I don't know, man. I mean, the original was just okay. I mean, other than Tim Curry, it was just kind of mediocre at best. Plus, you know how I feel about remakes. What? I said remakes suck. Oh, remakes suck. Oh, damn. Gee, I thought you were talking about something else. Oh. Ow! What the hell was that? Take a damn look. Take a damn look! You know you can't read. What you are about to see, what we are about to see, is called an adaptation. As in a book that has been adapted to screen for our viewing pleasure. Not a remake, not a reboot. Remakes suck. Reboots suck. Adaptations sometimes don't suck. Re-adaptation. What's that? Were you trying to speak? I just don't know. It's not a remake. It's not a reboot. It's not an adaptation. It's a re-adaptation. Whether or not the original miniseries properly adapted the book is a matter of individual opinion. The fact is, this is the second time the book has been adapted to the screen, so therefore it is, by definition, a re-adaptation. Dude, why are you trying to ruin this for me? You know I'm fucking excited about this movie. Look what you did. You made me drop the bat. Come on, I get the bat. Just trying to prove a point, and you gotta fucking bring me down. As fucking usual. Can we just see the movie and fucking enjoy it? Please? Can we do that? Please? Look, can we just go see this fucking movie already? Because right now I got a fucking headache. Is that so fucking goddamn hard? I didn't think so. Let's go. Time for the movie. God damn it. Thank you. Jeez. What the fuck? What?
It's Dan. I don't know where the hell you are, what you've been doing, but I've waited for like 3 hours.
Yeah, we'll be there at some point eventually. Can we go? Thank you. Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to the season premiere of FearFlix. We just got out of seeing the new It movie, a movie that I've been waiting for a very long time. The book is what got me into Stephen King, made me a hardcore Stephen King fan. It's my favorite book of his, and I've always been a huge fan of the miniseries with Tim Curry. So I was really looking forward to this movie. I was really hoping that they weren't going to I was hoping that they were going to be faithful to the book while also not taking too many liberties and not going too far with a lot of the stuff in the book, because I don't know if either of you guys have read
No.
The book?
No.
There's some really weird shit in the book, like really weird. Well, first, have you seen the miniseries?
Yeah, that one I saw. Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for a TV miniseries, it was very good.
But I know you've seen it with Tim Curry, the miniseries.
No, I've seen it, the original movie, but I never saw the miniseries.
That's the miniseries.
That's the miniseries.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't a movie. It was like
News
a TV.
to me.
Yeah, it was a TV miniseries.
Okay, whatever.
I didn't know
you
for the
maybe
longest
saw.
time either until he said it.
Little fun fact: the miniseries. You know how in the story it comes back every 27 years. It's been 27 years since the miniseries. Bill Skarsgård took on the role of Pennywise for this movie, and he's known for a few things, but he was relatively unknown. So I had
no idea who he was.
Yeah, when you look at him, like that's definitely one thing that they nailed on the head with this movie is that looking at Pennywise in this movie, you can't tell if that's Bill Skarsgård. Like he looks like, you know, somebody who could be in One Direction. Like, you know,
Wait, hold on, Pennywise or
Pennywise, this new Pennywise.
Looked like he could be in One Direction?
No, the actor.
Oh.
Going into this movie, I had kind of high expectations. I had heard all the praise that it had been getting. You know, it had 90% on Rotten Tomatoes yesterday. It's down to 88 the last time I checked. But you know, so I had kind of high expectations going into this, and overall, I think that I had too high expectations. And I think in the end, it was bound to disappoint in some way. In some ways, it did disappoint me. And I think this part will be like a spoiler free. So yeah, the worst aspect of it to me was the end. It was a little too, I don't know if over the top is the right wording, but you know, I think that the kids were awesome. The kids, I don't know what
I'll agree with that. The kids were amazing in that.
Like they were hysterical.
They were, yeah.
Like, you know, they're definitely very reminiscent of Stranger Things, and everybody seems to be comparing this to Stranger Things. It even has one of the kids from Stranger Things, Finn Wolfhard.
I even said during it reminded me exactly of Stranger Things. When
It's a trend now.
All messing around.
Or it might start a trend.
And I mean, it takes place in
probably.
1989, so it's, you know, something else as with Stranger Things that took place in the 80s also. It was bound to have some similarities to Stranger Things, especially, you know, with the plot and everything. You know, group of kids going up to try and face a monster. And
God damn it, Dan.
Oh, God. That'll be comments on YouTube.
Yeah.
Who's the freak with the V?
Who's got the douche flute?
No judgments here. This is our own losers club right here.
There you go.
So yeah, I think the kids were the strongest aspect of this. In Pennywise, in my opinion, he didn't have enough to work with as far as dialogue. He only had a few scenes where he actually really talked to the kids. Most of the other times, it was like him making noises and making faces.
Yeah.
Some of the facial expressions he made were cool, and they were kind of freaky. But I think Bill Skarsgård's performance overall was good, but if I would have given him more to work with as far as dialogue, I would have given him more of a chance. Kind of like the scene with Georgie at the beginning, because that's really the scene that sets the tone for the whole movie. You know, that was the scene that everybody was, you know, waiting for, and that was what this whole movie was, you know, kind of based around and promoted around, was that scene. You know, everybody was wanting to see, you know, what happens to Georgie, because in the miniseries you don't see it. I don't know, what did you think of that? I don't think it's really a spoiler, you know, to say that everybody pretty much knows that Georgie dies at the storm drain scene in the beginning. What did you think of the storm drain scene?
Of the newer version?
Yeah, the storm drain scene in this.
Well, I'm not aware of the way the story goes in the book, but if that's how it played out, then I think that sense of transparency is probably important for a modern remake, you know, delivered to a modern audience. So, I mean, I'm about, you know, accuracy to the book, and you know, aesthetically, visually, I thought that was probably one of the better sequences in the entire film. It's a shame that it started so strong and kind of just had that downward trajectory.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something that's completely contradictory to both of you. That scene lowered my expectations of this whole movie, because the god awful CGI, it looked absolutely terrible.
Yeah, the CGI was a problem. Like, they got really lazy on certain aspects. So, you know, for example, like when the younger kid who was in the library and there's a book, or rather a book, a balloon that goes through the room. It's like this Photoshop clip art balloon. I'm like,
I know what you mean.
You guys couldn't have just
I mean, that was
got a regular fucking balloon.
That was there.
What do you mean?
The balloon that was floating through, that was a balloon
No way.
that was there. Yeah.
No way.
It
That
didn't look
was
CG to me at all.
I thought it looked
like
CG.
it was, probably attached to something, like driving across the floor, but it definitely looked like a real balloon to me.
That type of stuff wasn't what I really had the problem with. It was when they did, like, I guess all of the teeth scenes. And
Yeah.
Well, that's-
anytime like that.
I don't know if it's possible to do
Well, that, but, like, the scene with Georgie, I know we're trying not to give anything away, but the scene with Georgie, that, like I said, the CGI in that scene, it was just god-awful. And that's why I just completely lowered my expectations after that.
The teeth I will agree on, because I feel like that was one of the things that the miniseries got right. Was it was always just prosthetic sharp teeth, and there were a few times in this movie where they had prosthetic teeth where he wasn't,
and that
like,
was fine.
his face wasn't it wasn't like as extreme as it was in most of the other scenes with him. I do agree with you on the CGI, and
The acting was good. I thought that scene, the dialogue was spot on. I thought it was really good, but I don't know, just the CGI kind of lowered my expectations a lot.
Yeah, because the dialogue between Pennywise and Georgie, especially like the way Bill Skarsgård delivered that dialogue to Georgie was perfect. Like, it was really kept you it built the tension, in my opinion, really well.
Every time he had the running or anything like that at somebody, it just looked terrible.
that stupid effect.
Yeah.
They're going frame by frame.
Well, that too, but I'm mainly talking about, like, when it's choppy like that, that's fine. That adds a little bit of creepiness to it, but more so, I don't know, it's like the scenery around, I guess they wanted to make them look faster. You know what I mean? It's kind of, they looked like they tried to jump them to you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was one of the complaints that I heard from a lot of reviews that I saw, was that a majority of the times when he, scares people, a lot of it involves him at the camera, and you can tell that it's like, most of his body is CG.
Yeah, that's what I mean by it looks, and it just took me out of it a bit.
The cinematography I thought was great. The way it was filmed, I really like, not counting like the CG and stuff like that, but the way it was filmed, the look of it, the colors, it didn't have that usual kind of like filter kind of thing where a lot of horror movies are just like really dark.
They did put a really good 80s vibe on it.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, was like it definitely felt like it took place, it definitely felt like you were in 1989. And that combined with like the music, I thought was great. The soundtrack, they did a good job with the music in this, that it wasn't like, too over the top in moments where there didn't need to be music and stuff like that. Like, just let the tension build on its own, and then, have it blow. I think really the biggest downer for me was just the ending, the final confrontation. I would definitely prefer the miniseries ending for the kids' part. I preferred the way that ended to this. They didn't do a good job of explaining why they were able to kind of defend themselves against him. And this is kind of, I guess, getting into spoiler territory, so, warning for people who haven't seen it. We're going to touch on some spoilers here.
Now, how did the miniseries one end? I kind of forget that. It's been a while.
Well,
With the slingshot.
Well, it's the slingshot, and Eddie uses his inhaler. Yeah, and he points it at him and says, "This is battery acid, you slime." And the idea of it is that he knows that it's, a placebo, but it ties into the belief stuff that he believes in that moment that it's real. That it's real chemicals and stuff like that, so that's why he sprays it in the face of Pennywise, and it burns him, and it hurts him, and then they're able to shoot him with the slingshot, and it cracks his head open and everything. With this, I felt like there was too much of like them stabbing him with pipes and stuff like that, and I thought that was like,
They tried to get medieval.
that was too much like so many other monster movies, like this is supposed to be something that they have to battle with their emotions and their will, basically. Like, I don't know, what did you think of that final confrontation. Did you feel the same way about like them stabbing the shit out of it with the pipes and everything? And
I just thought it was maybe a little bit cheesy. You're right. It is a monster that's meant to be overpowered with, emotions and friendship and teamwork, and it just kind of felt like, the answer all along was to beat it with a crowbar, let it fall down the well, and then I guess 27 years from now we'll have to pick up where we left off. It's like, that just, what a waste of time.
And they show like his, head kind of opening up, and you don't really know what's going on, like why. Yeah. Like that's why I was saying, like they didn't do a good job of explaining why they were suddenly able to hurt it.
They did touch on it a little bit with that nail gun, I think it was. Remember the kid said it's not loaded.
Yeah.
The kid said it's not loaded, and then he popped it, and then that ended up being what pretty much affected him.
That's like another example, though, that I was expecting him to say something like, I believe that it's real or something like that.
Well, no, the thing is, he thought that it was loaded. He didn't think it was unloaded.
Yeah, he believed it.
Yeah.
That's why he was able to...
Which is why they kind of touched on it a little bit, without him coming straight out, pretty much looking at the camera and saying, I believe that this is loaded, so that's why it worked.
Yeah, and it's just, it really kind of disappointed me that they went kind of like this basic, like a lot of other monster movies, like I said, where they're just kind of trying to beat the shit out of it. And then,
well, I mean, they're kids, they don't really... The only thing that they understand is that he wasn't able to kill it because they weren't afraid.
Yeah. That's why he wasn't able to kill Beverly.
They weren't able to kill... Like, it wasn't able to kill them because they weren't afraid.
Yeah. The scene with the meat locker, that I thought was cool, with the hands coming out of the meat locker for Mike.
That's traditional.
And then seeing Pennywise hanging in the meat freezer, that was really cool. And then his eyes glowing, showing him the deadlights. I felt that the thing with the painting was freaky. I thought
that was actually really cool.
That face was really spooky.
Yeah, it was.
I thought
they did a really good job with that.
And it didn't look like fake to me.
It just looked like a painting. It looked like a painting coming to life.
Yeah, the scene with the sink and the blood was awesome. I knew that they were gonna change it up, because in the trailers, when they show a brief moment of that scene, it's all black. It looks like mud. It looks like oil or something. So they like changed the color.
Well, that they probably couldn't show that.
Well, yeah, and it was a lot bloodier than I thought it was gonna be. Like it was tons and tons and tons of blood. Like this was a pretty gory movie. Like there were a lot of
Part of me wanted the father to walk in as they were cleaning it up and be like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah.
And I don't understand why they didn't go through everybody's backstory. They went through a couple. They went to certain people's families, but like, who was it, Richie? They're the one with the glasses. Yeah, they didn't go through his.
Yeah.
I thought that was stupid. He was probably the most interesting character out of all of them, and to me anyway.
Yeah.
And so that's why I kind of wanted them to touch on what he was like, what his family was kind of like. With his life, because it seems like everybody that was getting picked on had like an unfortunate life.
Yeah, that's one of the things that brings them all together, is that they all have these things in common, where obviously they're each afraid of something specific, but they all have these troubled lives, where they're
except for like apparently Richie, because we don't know anything.
Well, they did that with a bunch of, like, they didn't show Ben's life, really, his home life.
Which one was Ben?
The fat one.
Yeah, but he was getting picked on because he was the new guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it still didn't really quite highlight his, he's like, hey, I'm super, super intensely interested in this weird, obscure subject.
Yeah,
so much so that my walls are covered in all this information. It's like, it's kind of a rare asset to run into that kid without any pretense or anything. I don't know, I felt like that may have been a little rushed.
I do agree with people that I feel, in my opinion anyway, I think the 2 hours and 15-minute time went a lot faster than a lot of other movies would have.
Yeah.
Because they kind of kept it, there weren't too many parts that were like, that I felt dragged.
No.
I don't know if either you guys felt differently.
No, I felt like it was way shorter than it really was.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, that scene in the beginning, kind of lowering my expectations, probably helped out a lot. Because then I started thinking, okay, it's only uphill from here. So...
Do you think it went uphill from there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It got a lot better. And it started, brought my expectations back up and up.
Not necessarily a movie I'd go out of my way to see again. For remakes especially, I think it's important for a film to not have to lean on its predecessor for that film to stand alone. I don't think that if this was a new movie and the original It had never existed and you just presented this to an audience, nobody would have liked it. I don't necessarily believe truly that people would have
I actually kind
enjoy
of
it.
agree with that.
Yeah, but
it was more hyped up because it was a classic. You know, everybody was like,
yeah,
"Hey,
but
oh,
the
that's an amazing."
miniseries isn't a classic, though. I mean, what people remember from the miniseries is Tim Curry as Pennywise. That's what, if anybody else had played Pennywise, number one, it wouldn't have been as good. That performance, I mean, wouldn't have been as memorable. And number two, I think people would have tried to forget that miniseries. But I do disagree that I don't think it kind of leaned on the miniseries at all.
I think the hype did. The hype did.
mean-
Had that not been out before, I don't think as many people would be seeing it.
Fans of the original material hyped it up because they wanted to see a faithful adaptation of the book, because a lot of people hate the miniseries because of how many liberties they took, and it's not very faithful to the book.
Well, that's kind of what I mean too. You know, people, they were like, it's all of a sudden like this is coming out. They're actually doing it. You know, they're doing it right. That's what he means. Like, you know, it kind of leaned on the miniseries in the sense where everyone knew what it was.
If the original didn't exist and nobody really cared much about this mini series or mini story by Stephen King, this movie wouldn't have been successful.
Not as it might have been
because
successful,
this film-
but not
disagree.
as successful as it is.
Okay, then let's assume that Stephen King never wrote the book, and this was
Okay.
this was a screenplay, and there was no other It series, and nobody ever knew what this was. If this movie just came out,
Then I would agree with you that
it would flop, and I'll tell you why.
I wouldn't say it wouldn't have flopped.
I'll tell you why. Because it does not break the mold of any other blockbuster horror film released around this time of year that I've ever seen.
I gotta
It's
agree with that. This is
super
all jump
similar.
scares.
It's
For the most
No,
part.
I completely disagree because.
hang on, isn't this the part where I say whether or not I like the
Go
movie?
ahead. Go ahead.
It's hard to disagree that this is a very typical horror movie with very, very, very typical tropes. Very typical tropes. You know, monster that you can't necessarily reason with, jump scares.
They have to go confront it. You know, things
Right.
like
Yeah,
that.
but I mean that's been done a million other times.
That's
but
what we're talking about.
the difference, though, is that number one, this wouldn't have flopped because the clown element alone would have made people go out and see it. Because you know, the fear of
maybe.
clowns is there are a lot of people who are afraid of clowns, and there aren't exactly a lot of movies with a monster clown. You know, there are movies with a guy dressed up as a clown who kill, slasher movies and stuff like that. Not something to this extent. And I think that what separates this from other typical horror movies, it does have aspects of typical horror movies in it, like you said, the jump scares and things like that. But what separates this is that the characters were done well. They made you care about the characters, which is what almost every other horror movie of this kind gets wrong. And that's why none of those other movies work at all, because you don't give a shit what happens to anybody.
No, that's fair
my
enough. That is a fair point. But I get what Dan's saying in the sense where if there was no miniseries, even if there was just no miniseries, would not be as well as it is now. It wouldn't be doing as well as it is now.
Not as. I'll
Matt,
agree.
Matt,
I'll say not as.
Can I
I
point
don't
out
think it would
something?
have flopped. I just think it wouldn't be doing as well.
There were two people that I saw in the theater that are wearing a shirt with that character's face on it.
What does that have to do with anything?
You were brought to this theater by that miniseries. I'm telling you that.
Well, maybe not Matt
because
specifically.
10 or 15 horror movies have come in and
I
out
don't
of
think
theaters
you-
that you haven't seen.
Although to be fair, I don't think I think you underestimate how, the size of Stephen King's fan base, because there are a
understand.
lot more people. Not
I think
thousands.
you overestimate the quality of his movies that he's made besides Misery.
Yeah.
I mean, are you
They've
kidding?
all flopped.
No, they haven't.
Which one
Some of the
hasn't?
best movies ever made have been Stephen King movies.
Which ones?
Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile.
Hold on,
Stand By
Shawshank
Me.
and Green. I'm talking horror movie, like horror things.
Hey, number one, he didn't do those movies. It
Regardless.
has nothing to do with any of those movies being bad because of his work.
No,
It's
I'm
because
not
his
saying
work
it's
was in
that.
the hands of people who didn't know how to make a good movie.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. You're kind of overestimating how well Stephen King movies have gone.
No, I haven't.
A little bit, because
Most of his movies have flopped. I didn't say that they
Yeah,
didn't.
which is why I think people would have expected that with this. Had
Yeah.
it just been... Yeah.
Even still,
That's
even
why
with the
it wouldn't have
miniseries,
done as well.
even
at
with
all.
the miniseries,
That's why I'm kind of trying to make his point in saying that because of that miniseries is why people came out.
but most
I
people
was trying
don't
to
like the
defend you
miniseries.
before
The
this.
expectations would have been massively lower
Yeah,
had the miniseries not existed,
yeah.
and there hadn't been some bar set by Tim Curry.
That's what I was trying to say in so many words. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. That I agree with.
And I just felt like it was so typical. The movie just felt typical to me. It felt like just a movie I expect people to go out and see. You know, once a year, every year they make this movie. That's just the way I feel about it.
And then there's me. I'm more of a casual horror movie person. I'm not a big stickler for things like that. You know, I'll say when a movie sucks, and I'll say when it doesn't. I don't think this one sucked. I think I kind of agree with Dan in the typical sense, where you're saying it's very typical, but I think they did a lot of things a lot better.
Yeah.
That's why I think it does stand out more than normal horror movies would, because they did a lot more better with storytelling. You know, in terms of the kids especially.
Yeah.
You know, backstories. They did make you feel for them, but like I said, you know, with the scares and stuff like that, and the way that it ended, it just felt more typical.
All these kids share one big fear of growing up, and because they're faced with death all around them, and they have no choice but to confront kind of the epitome of fear, something that feeds on their fear. The more they're afraid, you know, the more likely they are to not survive and to not be able to make it through. And the only way they're able to actually defend themselves against Pennywise and against it is by, you know, with the power of their friendship and the bond that they have. And that brings me to one of the things that the biggest moment in the entire book that was but not included in the movie, which everyone was wondering about. You know, only crazy people were wondering about it, because, you know, this movie would not be in theaters if the scene that I'm talking about had been included. And I don't care if you're worried about spoilers, you should know about this if you haven't read the book. When they first defeat Pennywise as kids, before they leave the sewers, they kind of, Beverly comes up with a way so that to kind of cement their bond with each other.
Do they all bang?
Yes. She has.
Oh
it's
my
not
God.
It's not an orgy, but
Oh, Jesus Christ.
she has in the sewers. She has sex with each one individually
Are you fucking serious?
before they leave the sewers, and he
oh
describes
my
it.
God.
For real?
He describes it vividly in the book. Like, he describes the size of their dicks and how it feels inside of her.
Richie had the smallest one.
Wait.
What the fuck?
I'm not,
Stephen King, you're a sack of shit.
And now I'm just now in this car finding out that
I didn't fucking know that.
Fucks all the kids.
Oh my God.
He
Let's all
put it in
blow
there.
a load in this
No,
13-year-old girl.
Hang on.
What the
I'm not
fuck?
saying the idea is that they're going to be bound together in a way for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, they're gonna be bound together.
I
all
know,
right?
I know.
Jesus
I know.
Christ! Because of the miniseries, I give it a B-. Without the miniseries, I would give it a C+.
How about you?
Overall, I'd probably give it a C- or a D+. Just in terms of, you know, I'm all about originality, and I just didn't see a lot.
They did a good enough job with the characters and with the story that it pushed it above an average horror film. In my opinion, this was definitely better than the average horror movie. I feel like they accomplished it well. They casted everyone well. The story, you know, I think they included all that they needed to include as far as from the book. So for me, I'd probably give it probably a B- overall for me. I might change my opinion once I see it again.
Like,
Who gives out a D+?
everything.
All right.
I give it a D+. You both failed.
So thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a comment and let us know what you thought of the movie. Have you seen it? Have you seen the original miniseries? Have you read the book? Click that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it. And get ready for more FearFlix, and we can use this FearFlix episode as the official kickoff for the Halloween season, official kickoff for autumn. I'm Matt.
Brian.
Faith.
Exactly. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.